All right, welcome to part 3 of the vaulting tutorial. So again, we're just gonna continue right where we left off. So the next thing we need to do is make it so that when you press the space key, your character actually vaults if he's in a valid state where he can vault. So to do that, let's go to our first person character. And then we want to find where he's doing the jumping. So that's basically just right here. And so I need to make a little bit of room. So I'm gonna move this down a little bit. And then we'll make this a little bit bigger. And so inside of here, we basically just want to add some logic that says when the jump key is pressed, we want to check, first of all, if we can if we can vault. Because if we can vault, then we want to do a vault, right? But otherwise, we want to do a jump. So to do that, we can drag in our vaulting component, and we can use the can vault function that we just wrote. And so this is going to return to us the result, which is either true or false. It also returns to us the ending location. We're not actually going to do anything with the ending location right here. It's going to be used when this function is called inside of the vaulting component, but we don't actually need to use it here. You could use it here if you wanted to, like draw something at the location you're going to vault to or something else, but we really don't have any use for it. So we really just want to check this result. And so if it's true, then we want to actually vault. Otherwise, we want to do the jump. So we're going to unhook this jump. So I'm going to cut this, Control X, and hook this up. So if it's false, we're going to do the jump like normal. Otherwise, we want to tell the vaulting component to try to do a vault. So to do that, we need to actually add an event for it. So we can come back here to the event graph inside of our vault component. And we can just, oops, wait 1 second. Hold on, sorry. Right, and so we can just right click and say add custom event, and we will call this vault. And so inside of here, or let's actually go back and hook it up real quick. So we'll come back here. So we can say, where is our component? Vaulting component, and we will say vault, right? So the logic here is pretty straightforward. If we can vault, then we vault. Otherwise, we just do a jump like normal. Okay, so let's come in here to this vault function and write this. So inside of here, we want to basically just reset the timer that we're going to use to handle the vaulting, and then we want to set the starting location so that we know where we're starting at, and then we also want to set the state to vaulting. So the first thing we need is a variable, and we will call this progress, and we want this to be a float. So what this is going to be, it's basically kind of like a timer, but it's going to go from 0 to 1, and when it's at 0, it means that the vault is just now beginning, or it hasn't begun yet. And then when it's 1, it will mean the vault is finished. So when we vault, we want to make sure that we set this back to 0 so that it's, it starts down at 0 because it goes from 0 to 1. And then the next thing we want to do is and let's move this to the private category and set it to private. And then the next thing we want to do is we want to save the starting location because we actually already have the ending location saved because that gets saved when can vault is called. But we need one for the starting location. So we can duplicate this. We'll just call this the starting location. And I'm actually going to drag this up just so it's next to the next to the ending location since they're kind of related. And so we can just set this because the starting location is basically going to be wherever we are right now. So we can drag in our owning character and say get actor location. And we can hook that up to the starting location. And then finally, the last thing we want to do is we want to set our vaulting state. So we'll drag in vaulting state and set it to vaulting. All right. And so I'm just realizing actually, hold on, did I? Yeah, okay. So actually, I just realized that we don't actually need this once the vault. I guess I added it when I was making my initial implementation of this, but now I realize I don't actually need it, or I never ended up using it. So maybe we should just go ahead and delete that real quick. So let's just come back here to this vaulting state, and we can just delete this guy, this middle one, because we don't actually need this, I realized just now. So we can come back here. We have to fix this macro. So if we double click on this macro, if we just refresh this node, it will fix that. And then we just want to select the output. We want to remove this guy, and then there we go. So it should look like this. So it's really we're either not vaulting or we are vaulting. We're getting some sort of warning. So what did I do? Let's go back to the event graph. Why? What? Refresh? What is that warning about? Can't parse default value. I don't know what this is talking about. I'm just going to delete this and drag it back in because I think it's just being stupid. We'll see. What? What did I... Can't parse default value 00 starting location. All right, so I was a bit confused there for a second. I kind of edited it out a little bit, but all I did was I was getting that warning. I think it might be an issue with 4.26 because I've never seen that warning before. But all I did was I just totally deleted the starting location that we just added, and then I just recreated it. So I just right-clicked and said promote to variable, hook this up. Oh, come on. Hook this up, and then I drag this into my private category, and I set it to private, and then I renamed it to starting location. And then when I compiled, now it works. So I think that might just be a bug with 4.26. I'm not sure what that was because I've literally never seen that before. So, but anyways, you just want to have a new variable called starting location and then have it set to private. And then that's pretty much all we need to do here. So I think, let me double check. Yeah, that's all we need to do there. So the next thing we want to do is inside of our tick. So let me drag this down a little bit so we have some room. So we already handled the case of if we're not vaulting, but now we need to handle the case for if we are vaulting. Because if we are vaulting, obviously we don't want to do any of this because we can't vault, obviously, if we're already vaulting. Instead, we actually want to do the logic that moves our player, right? That actually performs the vault. So I'm going to make a function over here on the left, and it will be called tick vault. And I'm going to drag this into the private category as well because obviously we don't want anybody else calling this. For the inputs, we want it to take in the delta seconds. So we'll add an input pin, call it, or make it a type float and call it delta seconds. So inside of here, it's going to be pretty straightforward. It's just a little bit of logic to move the character. So we want to do it all based on this progress. So the first thing we want to do is we want to take this progress and we want to increment it by the delta seconds. So we'll say float plus, and we want to add the delta seconds. So we'll say get delta seconds. And then we want to take that and we want to add it to, or we want to clamp it. So we'll say clamp float because we don't want this value to go above 1. So we'll go between 0 and 1. And then we'll set progress to that new value like so. And then once we have the progress updated, we want to say set actor location. So we'll say set actor location. Oh, maybe, so you might have to drag in the owning character and then drag off of that and say set actor location. There we go. And so his new location is going to be basically interpolated between his starting location and his ending location based on progress. So to do that, we can use this handy function called lerp vector, and it just stands for linear interpolate. So it's going to interpolate between A and B based on alpha. So alpha is our progress, A is our starting point, so we'll say starting location, and B is our ending location, and that is going to be our new location. And you can probably select teleport here as well, since we're kind of teleporting them. I don't know, it probably doesn't actually matter what you do, but I had it checked before. Yes, let's see here. So that's the first step. The next step is to check whether or not we've finished. So once progress gets all the way up to 1, then the vault has finished. And in that case, we want to set the state back to not vaulting. So we're actually going to hook up a sequence here at the beginning. So hold down S, left click, and create a sequence. And then hook this up again. And so like I just said, we want to drag in the progress. And we want to check if it's greater than or equal to 1. So we'll say float greater than or equal to 1. You could really just, make sure you set this to 1, not 10, 1. You could just check if it equals 1 because technically we're clamping it between 0 and 1, so it's never going to actually be greater than 1. But just as a precaution, we'll just say greater than or equal to 1, and then we'll do a branch. And so if it's greater than or equal to 1, meaning that we are done with the vaulting, then we want to set the vaulting state. So drag in the vaulting state and set it to not vaulting. Okay, so that's pretty much that function. There is one little thing we're going to modify about this here at the very end, but I just wanted to explain that once I show you the problem. So just for now, this is totally fine. So we just need to hook this up. So if we go back to the event graph, we want to hook this up to vaulting. So we'll say tick vaulting, and then make sure you hook up the delta seconds. Okay, so let's go ahead and actually run this and give it a try here. So if we walk up to this guy and we vault, you can see it does vault us, but it's really slow. And that was the part I was kind of talking about before, where we'll come back to it later. So it moves us from point A to point B, but again, it's really slow, right? So we don't quite want that. We want to be able to do it obviously a lot faster because this is way too slow for a vault, or maybe that's how you want it. But if you want to change the speed of it, it's actually really easy. So to do that, if we come back here to our tick vault, we just need to modify this delta seconds. So essentially, we just need to divide the delta seconds by however many seconds we want it to take. So we can say, let me just move this down and then to the left so we have a room. So we want to take this delta seconds. I want to say float divide, and then we want to divide it by some value. So if we take this and say promote to variable, it's going to make a variable, and we can call this the vault speed maybe. So this is going to be in seconds, and we want to take this and drag it into the constants category because again, this is another constant variable. And then we can set it to blueprint read only and private. And if we compile it, we can set it to whatever we want. So I'm going to set it to like, let me see what I set it to before. Yeah, I set it to 0.5, so I set it half a second to vault. And then we can hook that up to here. So now if we run this and we try to vault, it should only take half a second as opposed to a full second. And there you go. So you can obviously change that value based on what you want, but that's basically the gist of it. Yeah, so this all seems to be working pretty well. The only thing we need to do now is, and this is totally optional, like maybe you don't even want this, is if I run my other project, let me just run my other project real quick. So this is my other project, the one I showed at the beginning. You can see when he does the vault, he puts his gun down, and then he takes it back out when he's done vaulting. So if you don't care about that, then by all means, feel free to stop watching the tutorial now. And if you do, please leave a like and subscribe. I also have a Discord channel in the description of this video if you guys want to join that. It's just a community of game developers, basically. And I also have a Patreon if you want to support me there. That's always greatly appreciated. Otherwise, feel free to stick around and I'll show you how to do that last little animation part. Okay, so the last little animation part is going to be done mostly inside of the animation blueprint. So if we go to our first person character and we go to our mesh and we go to, let's see, if we hit this little magnifying glass next to the anim class, it will bring you to the animation blueprint that's being used for the character. So we can open this guy up and we want to go to the animation graph and we want to add the majority of the code inside of here. So essentially what we're going to do is we're going to modify the arms so that they rotate down a little bit whenever you start vaulting. So to do that, the first thing we want to do is we want to take this state machine here and we want to cache this. So we'll say cache, or it's called new save cache pose. And I will kind of cache that pose and save it into a variable. And then we can change the name of it up here. So we'll just call it state machine cache. And then we want to come down here and we want to say use. So we'll say use cache pose for the state machine. And then we want to use this node called transform bone. And what this does is it allows you to modify a particular bone, like you can translate it, rotate it, or scale it. You can do all sorts of stuff. The only thing we really care about is the rotation. So we want to come over here on the right and under rotation, we want to set the rotation mode to add to existing. And then we can leave this as component space. And so whatever value we pass here, it will add it to whatever bone we specify. So up here at the top, we need to specify a bone. So we're going to specify the upper arm L, which is, if I can click on it. It's not letting me click on it. Yeah, there we go. So it's this bone up here at the top left. So it's kind of like his shoulder, right? So we want to rotate that bone. And we want to rotate it by negative 45 degrees. And you'll see what this looks like here as soon as I get it hooked up. So to do that, we can drag this into here, and it will automatically add this little conversion node for us, which you're going to need. And so that's the left arm, but we also want to do it for the right arm. So we'll just copy this and paste it, and then hook this up. And then we want to change this to upper arm R. And then finally, we want to go back or let's see. So we want to only do this if we are vaulting. So let's add a little variable over here. I'm just going to duplicate this guy and we'll call it, oops, that didn't work. Duplicate, and we'll call it is vaulting. And then we can use this handy little node called blend poses by bool. And so for the bool, we can drag in is vaulting. And if it's true, then we want to use this. And so we can drag this over. And you can see as soon as we do that, it makes the little conversion node again, which is fine. And if it's false, then we just want to go ahead and use this cache pose. So we'll say use cache pose like so. And then you can fill in these blend time here. So this is basically how fast he's going to raise and lower his arms. I bumped it up to like 0.25 for both of these because I thought it was a little bit too slow. And then we want to hook this up to here, like so. So let me zoom out to kind of show you exactly what it looks like, because it's really not that complicated, but maybe it is when you do it the first time. So again, all that's happening here is it's saving off the state machine for, you know, what was basically there by default in the template. And then we're taking that and we are transforming the left shoulder and the right shoulder down 45 degrees. And we're only doing that if we are vaulting. Otherwise, we just use the normal saved cache. And then this was here before. This is just slotting in the montage section for the arms. So really the only thing we need to do now is we need to set this is vaulting Boolean, because right now it's not getting set from anywhere. And so we can do that inside of the event graph. So inside the event graph, I kind of hate the way they have the event graph set up. Like, it's kind of ugly. So what we're going to do, because we need access to the character, and in order to get access to it, we're going to need to cast to it. And since casting's, you know, not like something you really want to do all the time, if you can avoid it, we'll just do it once inside of the initialization. So we'll say event blueprint initialize animation. And so inside of here, we can actually just drag this node or copy and paste this node. So this gets the owner, which is the player. And so we can say cast to first person character. And this only runs once, so it's not a big deal at all. And we can right click on this and say promote to variable. And we'll say owning player for the name. And so now down here, I'm just going to get rid of this because we don't really need it. And then I'm just going to drag this over to make it a little bit more organized. So for this, we just want to drag in our owning player and hook that up. And then we want to just do the same thing here. I'm just going to make this a little nicer. So for the get velocity, you also need to hook up the owning player because we deleted it. Okay, so now it's a little bit nicer. So now all we have to do is drag in our owning player, and we just need a way to know whether or not the character is vaulting. So the vaulting component knows that because, so let's go to the vaulting component real quick, because he has a function inside of here. Let me go back. Sorry. Yeah, so he has a function inside of here, which, or not a function, he has a variable inside of here for the vaulting state, which keeps track whether or not he's vaulting. So we basically just need access to this. So I'm just going to make a little function over here and call it get vaulting state. And we'll drag this into the public category because it's going to be public. And we can make it pure and const as well. And all we want to do is we just want to return that vaulting state. So we'll drag that in. And then if you just drag the node onto here, it will return it, or it will create a return node, and then we can just hook that up like so. And so now back here in our animation blueprint, we can say owning player, and then we can say get vaulting component, and then we can say get vaulting state, just like this. And so basically we just want to set this vaulting to true if the vaulting state is set to vaulting. So we'll say equals enum, and we'll say vaulting. And if it does, so we'll just drag this in and we'll just set it to whatever this is set to, right? So all we're doing here is we are getting the owning player, we're getting this vaulting component, we're checking the state of the vaulting component, and whether or not it's set to vaulting, we are using that to set our is vaulting Boolean. Okay, so now if we come back here, or if we just press play and we try to vault, you can see it lowers his arms, and then when he's done vaulting, it raises his arms. So it gives it a little animation. If you don't already have one, it's just kind of like a quick way to hook one up. So yeah, that pretty much wraps up the tutorial. feel free to create like other, little boxes and do some testing, but I think it should work in, pretty much all cases. But if you do find a case where it's like it's vaulting something where you wouldn't want it to vault it, all you really need to do is go to the vaulting widget, or not the vaulting widget, the vaulting component, and add another check to inside of here. So you just add a third situation. Like maybe you don't want to be able to vault on top of grass, right? You would just add a check in here, and if it's grass, you would return false. So it's hopefully it will allow you guys to have a really good starting place. If you guys enjoyed the tutorial, really appreciate a like and subscribe. And like I said before, I have the Discord and the Patreon. If you guys want to support me there or join the Discord, it's always super appreciated. I love seeing new people join. Otherwise, I will just see you guys in the next video. And thanks for watching.